The cell was small, cold, and glowing faintly blue from the alien lights hidden in the walls. Dr. Evelyn Shaw sat on the metal floor, her hands bound with a thin silver wire that hummed softly like it was alive. She had been a scientist all her life, studying signals from deep space, but she never thought she would end up inside one of those signals. A few hours ago, if time even worked the same way here, she had been in her lab, staring at a strange transmission that looked like repeating pulses. Then came the light. A flash so bright it burned through the walls and pulled her mind somewhere else. Now she was here, breathing air that smelled like burned metal and static electricity. The door hissed open, and a figure stepped in. It was tall, maybe 7 feet, skin like polished stone, and eyes that glowed with lines of shifting color. It didn't walk like a human. Each step was slow and careful, like it was listening to the air. In its hand was a device, shaped like a cube, spinning slightly as if alive. "You are Dr. Evelyn Shaw of Earth," it said, its voice layered, like many people speaking at once. Evelyn didn't answer. She looked up, trying not to show fear. "Who are you?" she asked finally. "I am Kareth," the being replied. "Commander of the Varn Dominion. You will give me access to your mind." "My mind," she said, heart pounding. "What do you mean?" Kareth tilted his head. "Human minds hold information. Your kind has reached further than expected. You have learned to listen to the dark between stars. That knowledge must belong to the Dominion." Evelyn's mouth went dry. "So that's why you took me?" "Yes. You are the translator of your world's deep signal network. You will teach us how humans think." "I won't," she said quietly. The alien's eyes flickered. For a moment it almost looked confused, maybe even curious. "You won't," it repeated. She shook her head. "You can take my body. You can't take how I think." Kareth stepped closer. The room's light dimmed as he approached, like the energy was being drained from the walls. "You misunderstand, human. You have no choice." The cube floated from his hand and stopped in front of her face. It emitted a low hum, vibrating through her skull. Evelyn clenched her jaw, fighting the rising panic. She could feel the machine trying to read her thoughts, pulling at her memories, her family, her students, her small apartment filled with old books and coffee mugs. Then something strange happened. The machine flickered. Kareth frowned. The cube's hum turned into a distorted screech, and it fell to the floor. "Impossible," he muttered. Evelyn exhaled slowly. Her body trembled, but her eyes stayed fixed on him. "Maybe your toy doesn't work on humans." Kareth looked at her for a long moment. "You resist. That is unexpected." He turned and left the room without another word. The door sealed behind him with a hiss. Evelyn let out a shaky breath and leaned against the wall. Her head throbbed, but a tiny spark of pride warmed her chest. Whatever that thing tried to do, she had stopped it. Somehow. Outside the cell, Kareth stood before a large screen showing streams of alien text. Another Varn approached him, smaller and carrying a device shaped like a spiral. "Commander, the human's brain patterns are unstable. She resists the neural mapping." Karetha's eyes flickered brighter. "How?" "We don't know. Her neural pathways react with unpredictable patterns. It's almost as if she is aware of the scan." Kareth stared at the glowing data. "Aware?" "Yes. She adapts." The alien commander turned his gaze toward the metal door. Behind it sat a fragile creature made of flesh and bone, yet it had just resisted technology built to control entire species. For the first time in centuries, Kareth felt something new. Doubt. Inside, Evelyn was whispering to herself. "Stay calm, think. She studied the walls. The faint blue light came from lines carved into the metal, some kind of energy circuit. She remembered how circuits worked, how energy moved. Maybe she could overload it. Maybe she could escape. She pressed her ear to the wall and listened. There was a faint rhythm, a pulse, like a heartbeat but mechanical. Every few seconds it paused, then continued. She timed it in her head. Maybe if she could hit it at the right moment. Her thoughts were interrupted when the door opened again. 2 more aliens entered, carrying strange rods that crackled with red energy. The commander requests further testing, one of them said. Evelyn stood up slowly. Testing? What kind? Neither answered. They took her arms and led her down a long corridor. The walls shimmered like liquid glass, showing faint reflections of her own terrified face. They entered a chamber filled with floating screens and metal arms. In the center stood Kareth. He turned as she entered. You are stronger than expected, he said. But strength has limits. We will find yours. Evelyn met his glowing eyes. You still don't understand us, she said. Humans don't break easy. Kareth raised his hand, and the devices around the room started to hum. The air shimmered with energy. Evelyn clenched her fists, ready for whatever came next. Somewhere deep in the alien ship, an alarm light blinked red for half a second, then went dark again. Nobody noticed. But something had begun to move in the system. Something not alien. Something human. Evelyn stood in the middle of the glowing chamber. Strange machines surrounded her, humming like a deep heartbeat. Metal arms hung from the ceiling, each tipped with a crystal lens that moved when she breathed. Kareth walked slowly around her, studying her as if she were both dangerous and fascinating. Human minds are chaotic, he said. But patterns always exist. We will find yours. Evelyn didn't reply. She watched the alien devices, her mind racing. Every detail mattered. The color of the lights, the hum of energy, the rhythm of the sounds. Somewhere in all that alien technology, there had to be a weakness. One of the mechanical arms lowered. A soft blue light touched her forehead. A sudden warmth spread through her skull. Evelyn gasped but didn't scream. She wouldn't give them that. Kareth watched her closely. Do you feel pain? Yes, she said, forcing the word through clenched teeth. That means I'm still human. Kareth tilted his head, almost curious. You resist even when resistance is pointless. Why? Because giving up, she said, isn't something we learn on Earth. For a second, silence filled the room. Then Kareth turned toward a console. The alien symbols on the screen shifted faster. Increase neural depth. She will surrender. The machine pulsed brighter. Evelyn felt her memories pulling apart, her lab, her family, her students, everything flashing in pieces. She saw her father teaching her how to fix a broken radio, her mother laughing in the kitchen, the first time she saw the stars through a telescope. She clung to those memories like a rope. They were hers. No alien could take them. Then, deep in the machine, something glitched. The lights flickered, and the hum turned sharp. Karetha's eyes narrowed. Stop the process, he ordered. But the machine didn't stop. Sparks burst from one of the cables. Evelyn fell to her knees as the restraints released. The lights went black for a moment, and in that darkness, she moved. Her fingers brushed the side of the console. The metal was warm. Without thinking, she pressed a few keys, shapes she remembered seeing earlier when the screen glitched. The machine's hum dropped suddenly, like it was holding its breath. Kareth turned sharply. What did you do? Evelyn looked up, sweat on her forehead. You wanted to learn how humans think, she said breathlessly. Now you're learning. Before Kareth could react, the chamber lights turned red. A voice echoed in their language, fast and urgent. The other aliens rushed in, shouting words Evelyn couldn't understand. She only caught one English phrase, containment breach. Kareth pressed a glowing symbol on his wrist. The machines froze mid-movement. Secure her, he commanded. But when the guards reached for her, the floor beneath them shifted, the energy grid flickered and then collapsed. The aliens fell as gravity twisted for a second. Evelyn grabbed a fallen rod from the floor, its end glowing faintly. She didn't know how it worked, but she held it like a weapon. Kareth straightened. You cannot escape. The ship itself obeys me. Then maybe you should tell it to calm down, she said, pointing behind him. Kareth turned. The wall behind him was rippling like liquid, light bending inside it. From the distortion came a wave of static that made his armor buzz. Evelyn didn't wait. She ran. She dashed through the corridor, her bare feet slapping against the metal floor. The lights flickered wildly, alarms screaming in alien tones. Doors opened and closed at random. Somewhere behind her, Karetha's voice roared commands. Find the human. Seal Section 9. She turned a corner and stopped. A window, if it could be called that, opened to the vast darkness of space. Stars stretched endlessly, and below the ship hung a planet glowing blue and green. For a heartbeat, she wondered if it was Earth. But no, the continents were wrong. Footsteps echoed. She ducked into a side tunnel. The air was colder here, the lights dimmer. The rod in her hand vibrated softly, as if sensing the energy flow. She tapped the wall with it, and for a second, a stream of alien symbols flashed in the air. Okay, she whispered to herself, if I can overload one of these systems again, maybe I can make a signal. She crouched by a panel and tried pressing the symbols. The device flickered, then began to hum. The sound grew louder, sharper, until it stopped completely. The hallway fell silent. Then, from far down the corridor, she heard heavy footsteps. Kareth was coming. Evelyn backed away. The rod in her hand sparked, sending a small pulse into the wall. The lights around her flashed bright white, and suddenly, a deep metallic voice spoke in English. Human signal recognized, identity confirmed, awaiting command. Evelyn froze. The voice came from the ship itself. Command, she whispered. Yes. Help me escape. There was a pause. Then, processing, command accepted. Panels slid open along the corridor walls, forming a path that glowed faintly green. She didn't know how or why it obeyed, but she followed. Kareth appeared at the far end, fury in his glowing eyes. What have you done? He shouted, his voice echoing like thunder. Evelyn didn't stop running. You said your ship obeys you, she yelled back. Looks like it likes me better. He raised his arm, and energy flashed down the hall. A beam of white light struck near her feet, burning the floor. She stumbled, rolled, and kept moving. The glowing path led her into a small chamber with a single round platform. The voice spoke again. Emergency transport system ready. Coordinates unknown. Evelyn hesitated. She looked back. Kareth was almost at the door. She took a deep breath. Anywhere but here. The platform lit up beneath her. In an instant, the world exploded into white light, and she vanished. Kareth stopped, staring at the empty space where she had stood. His jaw tightened. The walls flickered with strange human words. System override, drive E, Shaw active. For the first time, Kareth felt something his kind had long forgotten. Fear. The light faded slowly, leaving Evelyn on her knees, breathing hard. The floor beneath her was rough, not metal anymore. The air was cold but clean. When her eyes adjusted, she realized she wasn't inside the alien ship anymore. She was in a cave. The walls were black stone, glittering faintly like glass. Blue light came from cracks in the rock, pulsing gently. Above, she could hear a low rumble. Maybe thunder, maybe engines. She touched her face, half expecting the alien restraints to still be there. But they were gone. The rod she had taken from the lab still lay beside her, glowing weakly. Where am I? She whispered. The same deep voice that had spoken on the ship answered. Faint now, almost like an echo inside her head. Location, unknown sector. Atmospheric readings, stable. Organic life detected nearby. Evelyn stood quickly, eyes scanning the dark tunnel. Nearby. How nearby? Before the voice could reply, a sound echoed, footsteps. Not heavy like the aliens, but softer. Human. Hello. She called, her voice trembling. A shape appeared from the shadows. A man, or something close to one, stepped forward. His suit was torn, patched together with metal plates. His eyes glowed faintly blue, the same color as the cave walls. He stared at her for a long time before speaking. "You're from Earth," he said. It wasn't a question. Evelyn froze. You speak English?" "Barely," he said with a tired smile. "Name's Rian. I used to be human. A long time ago." Her stomach twisted. "Used to be." He nodded. "They captured us. Years back, maybe decades. Time works strange here. Some of us were changed. Experiments." He looked at her carefully. "You escaped a Varn ship?" She nodded slowly. "I didn't mean to. The ship, it sent me here." Rian looked around nervously. "Then they'll come for you. Kareth never leaves anything unfinished." The name made her blood run cold. "You know him." "Everyone in the rebellion knows him," Rian said. "He's not just a commander. He's the one who broke the last human colony out here." Evelyn's throat tightened. There were colonies. Humans out here. He gave a short, bitter laugh. "Not anymore." Before she could reply, the ground shook. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the blue light flickered. A deep vibration filled the air, like a massive engine powering up. Rian's expression changed instantly. "They've found you." Evelyn gripped the glowing rod tighter. "Can we hide?" "No," he said. "We run." They sprinted through the tunnel, the sound of distant machinery echoing behind them. The ground trembled again. Something heavy was landing outside. A ship. They burst out of the cave into blinding light. The sky above wasn't blue. It shimmered green and silver, filled with clouds that moved like waves. In the distance, towers of black metal rose from the ground, half ruined, half alive. Rian pointed toward the horizon. "There's a human outpost in the wastelands. If we can reach it, they'll protect you." "Humans survived here?" Evelyn gasped. "A few. Hiding. Fighting. Dying slowly. They started running again." The air was thin, filled with strange sparks of light that floated like fireflies. Behind them, a deep roar echoed. Evelyn turned her head. A Varn patrol craft was descending, its engines glowing red. Rian shouted, "Faster!" They ran across the rough ground, jumping over cracks and sharp stones. The ship fired. A blast of white energy hit nearby, throwing up dirt and smoke. Evelyn fell, coughing. Rian grabbed her arm and pulled her up. "Keep moving." The ship circled overhead, hunting them. Evelyn's mind raced. She still had the alien rod. Maybe it wasn't just a weapon. Maybe it could do something else. She pressed the side of it. The light at the tip brightened. "Rian!" she yelled. "Get down." He dropped just as the rod released a burst of energy. A blue wave shot upward, striking the ship directly. The craft jerked, its engines sputtering. Then it spun out of control, crashing into the rocks in a ball of fire. Evelyn stared at the smoking wreck. "I can't believe that worked." Rian looked at her with a mix of shock and respect. "You're dangerous, Doctor." "I'm desperate," she said. They kept moving until the land began to slope downward. In the distance, faint lights blinked, small fires, tents, maybe shelters. "That's it," Rian said, pointing. "Human camp." As they approached, a few figures stepped out from behind rocks, holding rifles that looked like they were built from scrap. One of them, a woman with short gray hair, aimed directly at Evelyn. "Who's she?" the woman demanded. Rian raised his hands. "She's from Earth. The Varn took her. She escaped." The woman lowered her weapon slowly, studying Evelyn. "No one escapes the Varn." Evelyn met her eyes. "Maybe no one tried hard enough." The woman smirked slightly. "You've got spirit. Fine. You can stay. For now." Rian led her inside the camp. It was small, maybe 20 people, most wearing old Earth clothing mixed with alien tech. They looked tired but alert, survivors in every sense. As Evelyn sat near a fire, warmth finally returning to her body, she looked at the stars. Somewhere up there, Kareth was searching. "Do they ever stop?" she asked softly. Rian shook his head. "The Varn don't stop. But neither do we." Far above, in the orbit of the green-silver planet, Kareth stood on the bridge of his ship, watching a holographic map. A red mark blinked on the surface, human activity detected. He clenched his fists. "Prepare descent units," he ordered. "The human scientist must be retrieved alive." The officer bowed. "Yes, Commander." Kareth turned to the viewing window. The stars reflected in his cold eyes. "You think humans don't break easily," he whispered. "We'll see." Down below, Evelyn felt a chill run through her body, though she didn't know why. The night air was quiet, but the war was coming, and this time, humanity wasn't going to run. The camp was quiet that night. Fires burned low, and the wind carried a soft metallic sound across the barren land. Evelyn sat beside Rian, staring at the alien rod in her hands. Its glow was fading, but she could feel a pulse inside it, like a living thing waiting to wake again. "Can it still work?" Rian asked. "I think so," Evelyn said. "It reacts to thought patterns. Maybe it's linked to the Varn ship systems. Maybe that's why it obeyed me before." Rian smiled faintly. "Then keep thinking strong thoughts." Evelyn looked up at the strange green sky. "If Kareth finds us, thinking won't be enough." As if her words were a curse, the ground trembled. The fires flickered. Someone shouted from the edge of the camp. "Sky sighted! Varn ship incoming!" The survivors scrambled for weapons. Old rifles, scavenged laser tools, anything that could fire or burn. Evelyn stood, her heart racing. Above them, a massive shadow passed across the sky, black, silent, shaped like a blade. Rian pulled her toward the rocks. "Stay low." The ship hovered overhead, its engines humming deep and cold. Then beams of light shot downward, scanning the ground, searching. "They're tracking life signs," Evelyn whispered. Rian gritted his teeth. "Then we'll give them too many to track." He pointed at a cluster of metal towers near the camp. "We built those to jam sensors. But they never worked right." Evelyn looked at the alien rod again. "Maybe now they will." She ran toward the towers as the ship began to fire. Bolts of white energy tore through the rocks, exploding dirt and flame into the air. The sound was deafening. People screamed, scattered, fired back, hopelessly small against the giant above them. Evelyn reached the first tower and touched the base with the rod. It glowed brighter, connecting with the strange metal. Symbols flickered across the surface, like the tower was waking up after years of silence. "Come on," she whispered. "You can do this." The rod pulsed once, then twice, and suddenly the tower roared to life. A wave of blue light burst upward, spreading across the sky like a net. The ship's scanners flickered. Inside the cockpit, alien pilots shouted in confusion. "Interference! Target lock lost!" Kareth stood behind them, his eyes narrowing. "Find her manually." The ship descended lower. The ground shook with every blast. Evelyn ran toward the second tower, but a blast hit nearby, throwing her to the ground. Dust and heat burned her face. She coughed and tried to move, but Kareth landed. He dropped from the ship like a falling shadow, his armor gleaming in the firelight. The aliens behind him spread out in formation, their weapons glowing red. Rian saw him and froze. "He's here," he whispered. Kareth looked around the ruined camp, his voice calm and cold. "Human defiance," he said. "Always louder than it is wise." Evelyn forced herself up. "You should know something about humans, Kareth," she said, her voice shaking but steady. "We learn fast." Kareth turned toward her. "You escaped once. You won't again." He raised his arm, energy building in his gauntlet. But before he could fire, the second tower activated. The blue light shot up, merging with the first. The sky above shimmered violently, and the ship began to spin out of control. Inside, alarms blared. Power feedback detected. Kareth looked up, fury twisting his face. "What have you done?" Evelyn shouted, "I connected your technology to itself. You're fighting your own system now." Lightning-like energy cracked across the air. The ship tried to rise, but one engine exploded, scattering burning debris across the rocks. Rian grabbed Evelyn's arm. "We have to move." They ran as explosions tore through the camp. The humans who survived followed, carrying the wounded, shouting orders. The night was chaos, fire, light, and the sound of alien metal breaking apart. Kareth moved through the smoke, untouched by the flames. His armor glowed white-hot, and his eyes fixed on Evelyn. "You think this is victory?" he roared. "You destroy what you don't understand." Evelyn stopped, turning to face him. "No," she said. "We fight what tries to own us." Kareth charged, faster than she expected. The rod in her hand flared to life, reacting to his energy. She swung it just as his hand reached for her, and the two forces collided. The blast threw them both back. Evelyn hit the ground hard. Pain shot through her arm, but she held onto the rod. Sparks danced across her skin. Kareth stood slowly, smoke rising from his armor. "Impressive," he said, voice low. "You adapt even in chaos. That is why you are dangerous." Evelyn tried to stand, her vision spinning. "And that's why you'll lose." He raised his weapon again, but before he could strike, Rian fired a pulse rifle from the rocks. The shot hit Kareth in the chest, forcing him a step back. "Over here, alien!" Rian shouted. Kareth turned toward him, anger flaring, and Evelyn seized the chance. She aimed the rod at the towers and screamed, "Now!" The towers exploded in a blinding wave of blue light. The air shook. Karetha's ship, already damaged, was pulled into the blast, twisting, breaking, and finally collapsing in a burning spiral. When the light faded, silence followed. The sky was black again. The alien ship was gone. Evelyn fell to her knees, breathing hard. Around her, the camp was half destroyed, but people were alive, coughing, crying, helping each other. Rian limped over and sat beside her. "You did it," he said quietly. She shook her head. "No, we survived. That's all." Far above, in the dark orbit, a smaller Varn craft watched the scene. A transmission blinked across its screen, Karetha's signal, faint but alive. "Commander, status?" the pilot asked. A weak, cold voice answered, "Begin recovery. The war has just begun." On the ground, Evelyn looked up at the stars, unaware that somewhere up there, Kareth was still breathing and watching. The morning after the battle was quiet. Smoke still rose from the broken towers, and the ground was covered with black dust and burnt metal. The survivors moved slowly, collecting what they could, tools, food, even pieces of the alien ship that had crashed nearby. Evelyn sat on a rock, staring at the alien rod in her hands. It was cracked now, its blue glow dim and flickering. Rian walked up beside her, his jacket torn, his face covered with ash. "You should rest," he said softly. She shook her head. "Karetha's not dead. I can feel it." Rian sighed. "You're probably right. But for now, we're alive. That's something." Evelyn looked around the camp. People were rebuilding small shelters, helping the injured, but their faces carried the same fear. "If he comes back," she said, "we won't survive another attack like that." Rian nodded. "Then we need to change how we fight." He led her to a pile of alien debris, parts of the Varn ship that had fallen during the blast. "You said you're a scientist," he said. "Can you use this stuff?" Evelyn crouched, touching one of the glowing fragments. It pulsed faintly under her hand, almost like it recognized her. "Maybe," she said slowly. "But we'd need power. And time. Both are running out," Rian said. Evelyn took a deep breath. Then let's start now. For the next 2 days, she worked non-stop. Using alien tech mixed with old human tools, she built something the others couldn't quite understand. A communication field, a kind of signal amplifier. She believed the same strange connection that allowed her to control the ship could be used again, this time to reach something bigger. Rian watched her work, bringing scraps, holding wires, asking questions she barely answered. At night, he'd see her staring at the sky, whispering calculations to herself. On the third night, the device came alive. A beam of blue light shot upward, vanishing into the clouds. The air hummed with quiet power. Rian stepped closer. "What did you just do?" Evelyn smiled weakly. "I sent a message. A human one." "To who?" "To anyone out there still listening." Far away, beyond the planet's orbit, in the cold dark of space, a small human ship picked up the signal. Static at first, then a clear voice, Evelyn's voice. "This is Dr. Evelyn Shaw. I am alive. Humanity is not gone. If you can hear this, we are still fighting." The crew of that distant ship froze. One of them, an older man with a scar across his face, whispered, "After all these years." Back on the planet, Evelyn looked up at the glowing beam. Hope flickered in her chest for the first time in days. But far above, in the shadows of the wrecked Varn fleet, Kareth was also listening. Inside a dark recovery chamber, his body was surrounded by light. His armor was broken, but his eyes burned with anger. "She calls for her kind," he said. "Then we will answer." The alien beside him hesitated. "Commander, our forces are weakened. The energy backlash." Kareth interrupted sharply. "Rebuild. Adapt. If humans learn to use our power, then we will evolve faster." He clenched his hand, the armor around it reforming with a hiss. "The next time I face her, I will not seek control. I will bring extinction." Down on the planet, Evelyn was checking the readings on her new transmitter when a strange vibration spread through the ground. The surviving humans looked around, confused. The air began to shimmer, a familiar hum, dark and powerful. Rian's eyes widened. "He's back already?" Evelyn frowned. "No, not him. Something else." A small drone, spherical, black and cracked, floated down from the clouds. It moved slowly, scanning everything. Evelyn raised her hand cautiously. "It's Varn tech, but it's not attacking." The drone stopped in front of her and projected a symbol in the air, 2 overlapping circles. Then it spoke in a broken human voice. "Dr. Shaw, connection, partial." Evelyn's heart jumped. "Who are you?" "Human, survivors," the drone said. "We received your signal. We are coming." Rian stared. "Humans? Real humans? From space?" "Yes," Evelyn said, smiling for the first time in days. "We're not alone anymore." But before the moment could last, the drone began to shake violently. A dark pulse rippled through the air, and it exploded into pieces. The camp went silent. Evelyn felt a chill crawl up her spine. Rian looked at her. "That wasn't an accident, was it?" She shook her head slowly. "Karetha's already intercepting communications. He's faster than we thought." Rian grabbed a rifle. "Then we better move before he finds the source." Evelyn stared at the sky, where the faint trace of her signal still shimmered. She whispered to herself, "They heard me. That means we have a chance. I just have to stay alive long enough for them to reach us." Miles above, Kareth stood before the wreckage of his ship, now rebuilt into a monstrous shape, half machine, half living metal. His soldiers moved in silence around him. "Locate the transmission origin," he ordered. "Already found, Commander," one replied. "The human base is exposed." Karetha's glowing eyes narrowed. "Then burn it from the surface. And bring me the scientist, alive." On the planet, Evelyn and Rian could already see the red glow rising in the night sky. The air began to tremble again. Rian turned to her. "Whatever you're building next," he said, "make it fast." Evelyn held the cracked alien rod, sparks flickering inside it. "I'm not building this time," she said quietly. "I'm fighting." The first blast hit the horizon, lighting up the dark like a sunrise of fire. And so began the second wave, the moment humanity stopped running and started to fight back. The sky burned red as the second Varn fleet descended. The ground shook under their engines, and a low, haunting sound filled the air, a mix of thunder and metal. The humans in the camp scrambled to prepare, grabbing what weapons they had. Some prayed, some cursed, but all of them knew one thing. This time, there was no escape. Evelyn stood in the middle of the camp, the cracked alien rod glowing faintly in her hand. Rian came running toward her, breathless. "They're everywhere. We counted at least 10 ships this time." She nodded, her face calm but pale. "Then we fight smarter, not bigger." She walked to the center of her transmitter, where the ground was still marked from the signal beam she had sent days ago. The alien fragments around it pulsed weakly, responding to her presence. "These pieces still have energy," she said. "If I link them again, maybe I can overload the Varn systems when they come close." Rian frowned. "You mean, explode it?" "Not exactly," she said with a faint grin. "Think of it like an electromagnetic trap. Their tech feeds on energy. I'll give them more than they can handle." The first blasts landed in the distance, throwing dirt and fire into the air. The humans took positions behind the rocks and broken towers. Children were hidden in the caves. Everyone else prepared to die standing. The sound of Karetha's army grew louder. Dark shapes appeared in the smoke, tall armored soldiers with glowing eyes, moving like machines. Above them, the lead ship hovered, massive and silent. Inside it, Kareth stood on the command deck, his armor repaired and gleaming black. His voice was cold. "Capture the scientist alive. Kill the rest." The Varn troops advanced. Evelyn kneeled by the transmitter, connecting wires, hands shaking but steady. "Come on," she whispered. "Just a little more power." Rian crouched beside her, firing bursts from his rifle to cover her. "We can't hold them much longer." She looked up, her eyes fierce. "Then we don't hold. We turn the ground itself against them." As the Varn soldiers entered the valley, Evelyn pressed her palm on the glowing surface of the transmitter. The alien rod lit up like fire. A deep hum spread through the air. The ground vibrated, then split with blue light. The Varn soldiers stopped for a moment, confused, then their armor began to spark. "What is this?" one shouted in their strange language. The hum turned into a high-pitched scream. Energy arced through the valley, jumping from one soldier to another. The machines they carried overloaded, bursting with white light. From his ship, Kareth watched, his expression unreadable. "Impressive," he murmured. "You learned to use our power. But do you know what happens when you push it too far?" He raised his hand, and the ship's engines shifted. A massive beam of red energy erupted downward, hitting the valley. Evelyn barely had time to react. She slammed the rod into the ground and shouted, "Everyone down!" The beam hit. A shockwave exploded across the landscape, throwing humans and aliens alike into the air. The valley turned into a storm of dust and light. When the noise faded, everything was quiet again. Evelyn opened her eyes slowly. Her ears rang, and her body ached. The camp was gone, replaced by smoking ruins. "Rian," she called weakly. He crawled from the debris, coughing. "Still here." They both looked toward the ridge. The Varn ship was still hovering, but its lower half was damaged, glowing cracks spreading like fire. Evelyn stood, her knees shaking. "He's not going to stop until we're gone." Rian grabbed her arm. "Then we don't wait for him to finish. You wanted to send a signal, send one he can't ignore." She understood instantly. The transmitter still pulsed faintly under the dirt. If she reversed the signal and sent it through Karetha's energy beam, it could overload every Varn system in orbit. But it would need direct input, someone at the center when it activated. She looked at Rian. If I do this, I might not survive. He shook his head. You don't have to. Yes, she said quietly. I do. Rian stared at her, then nodded slowly. Then I'll buy you the time you need. He turned and ran toward the ridge, shouting and firing at the Varn troops who were regrouping. Evelyn dropped to her knees and began recalibrating the alien circuits. Sparks flew around her. Karetha's voice echoed through a speaker from above. Dr. Shaw, you continue to surprise me. But your efforts are meaningless. Humanity's time is over. She looked up at the burning sky. You keep saying that, she whispered, but you don't understand us at all. The transmitter roared to life. A column of light burst upward, connecting directly with Karetha's ship. Inside the control deck, systems went wild. Power overload, a soldier shouted. Karetha's armor sparked again, the red glow in his eyes flickering. Impossible! The ship began to break apart, flames consuming its edges. Kareth roared and leapt from the collapsing deck, landing on the ground below with a heavy crash. Evelyn saw him through the smoke, still alive, still coming. She pressed her hand to the control panel one last time. The rod in her hand cracked completely, spilling blue fire into the air. The energy shot upward, expanding like a wave. The nearest Varn ships exploded in silence, their light vanishing into the dark. Evelyn fell backward, exhausted. The world faded in and out. Rian reached her side, lifting her gently. You did it, he whispered. Above them, the sky was finally clear. No ships. No engines. Just stars. But far in the distance, a single streak of red light fell toward the horizon. Kareth, still alive, still burning. Evelyn's voice was weak, but steady. Then it's not over yet. Smoke covered the horizon like a dying storm. The battlefield was silent except for the soft crackle of fire and the wind moving through broken metal. Evelyn sat against a piece of debris, her clothes torn, her skin burned from the blast. The sky above her was clear now. No ships, no noise, only stars. For a moment, she thought it was finally over. But then she saw it. A streak of red light falling from the upper atmosphere. It hit the ground miles away with a thunderous crash that echoed across the empty valley. The light didn't fade, it grew. Kareth had survived. Evelyn pushed herself up, gasping in pain. Of course you did, she whispered. Rian helped her stand. His arm was bandaged, his face covered in dirt, but he still managed a small smile. You're not going alone, he said. She looked at him, then shook her head. This is my fight. You've done enough. He wanted to argue, but her eyes stopped him. There was a calm determination in her gaze, the same one she'd had the first day they met in that alien cell. He nodded slowly. Then finish it. Evelyn walked toward the red glow in the distance. Each step echoed through the ruined valley. The air grew hotter the closer she got, and the ground pulsed beneath her feet like a heartbeat. When she reached the crater, Kareth stood at its center. His armor was cracked, glowing from within. Half his face was burned, and one of his eyes flickered between colors. Yet he still stood tall, proud, furious, unbroken. You destroy fleets, he said, his voice lower now, distorted. You kill soldiers. And still, you think you have one. Evelyn's voice was steady. I didn't come here to win. I came to stop you. Kareth tilted his head. You cannot stop evolution. The Varn are the peak of order. You humans are chaos, small, short-lived, emotional. You fight even when you know you will lose. Why? She looked up at him. Because that's what makes us human. We fight because we care. Because we believe in something more than survival. Karetha's damaged eye flickered again. Belief is weakness. Evelyn stepped closer. No, it's strength. You tried to understand us by reading our minds. But you never listened to our hearts. For a moment, the alien didn't move. The red light around him pulsed, reacting to his emotions. Your heart cannot save you. Maybe not, she said, raising the broken alien rod in her hand. The crystal at its end still glowed faintly blue. But it can save everyone else. Kareth looked at the weapon. You would use our own technology against me again? It's not your technology anymore, she said. It's ours now. The alien took a step forward, but the ground around them began to vibrate. The remaining Varn circuits buried in the earth responded to the rod's signal. Evelyn had reprogrammed it, not for destruction this time, but for release. The energy that had powered the Dominion's control systems was about to burn itself out. Kareth realized it too late. You will destroy us both. She smiled softly. Maybe. But you'll never control another mind again. He lunged at her, but she pressed the crystal into the ground. A wave of blue light exploded outward, engulfing them both. For a moment, there was silence, then a roar of wind and light that stretched across the valley. The alien circuits shattered, releasing their power into the atmosphere. The red glow of Karetha's armor faded into white. Rian, watching from a distance, shielded his eyes as the blast tore through the sky. When the light faded, the crater was empty. He ran forward, searching through the smoke. Evelyn! Evelyn! There was no answer. Only a faint blue spark flickering among the ashes. He picked it up, the broken crystal, still warm, pulsing like a tiny heartbeat. He held it close, whispering, "You did it." Behind him, the morning light began to rise. The first sunrise in a sky free of alien ships. Weeks later, across the ruined cities of Earth, the signal she had sent before the final battle kept spreading. Not a distress call anymore, but a message of survival. It was short, simple, and carried in every human language. We are still here. And somewhere, far beyond the stars, that signal reached others, humans who had been taken long ago, scattered across colonies and alien worlds. They heard her words. They understood. Humanity was not broken. It was rising again. Back on Earth, Rian stood at the rebuilt transmitter site. He looked at the sky and smiled. She said we don't break easily, he whispered. Guess she was right. As the camera of time pulled back, from the valley, from the planet, from the stars, a faint glimmer moved across the darkness. A spark of blue light, drifting through the void. It pulsed softly, like a living thing. Maybe it was just energy. Or maybe, just maybe, a piece of Evelyn still watched the stars.